I'm a nurse in Essex, and what I would say is that I'd kind of rephrase what you said earlier, because you said about giving more confidence. I don't think anything. I have nothing left in my tank with the Tory government. Brexit.
Was there much there to start with? I think no. Okay, I said I wasn't going to ask those questions.
I would have been pleasantly surprised and happy to be surprised if things would have gone as I predicted. You know, if they'd have
or
gone
feared
the opposite of what I predicted. Absolutely.
But how could you not be? This is the weirdest thing about the footballification, isn't it? Because the idea that how could you be anything other than relieved and delighted if we had got similar death rates to, for example, Germany?
Well, exactly. And I think the problem I have from the beginning and working in the NHS is that I could see it coming. I could see the lack of. The NHS tried its hardest to have guidelines and push the staff through and have this positive outlook, but it's very hard to do that when you are being guided by, in my opinion, imbeciles. When you've got people...
You are a nurse, so you're using the term technically, I presume.
And oh yes, of course, it's technical terminology. The problem I also have is that if they told the truth, and I mean the real truth, I think it would be so disgusting that people would not believe it. It would be so disgusting that a Prime Minister stayed on holiday and just thought nothing of staying on holiday for that time, or even just getting some information out there, or just starting the ball rolling.
It's unbelievable, that bit, isn't it?
And that's the problem, though, is that if what
half of February he was away, he wasn't. He was off, and I mean, you know, arguably, it will be. History will judge it to be the single most important month of his premiership, possibly the single most important month in the United Kingdom since the Second World War. I don't think I'm exaggerating, and he wasn't there.
Exactly, and if he told you really what was going through his head at that time, I think people wouldn't believe it, because his thoughts were probably, oh well, never mind, it'd be okay, or actually my holiday's more important, or whatever nonsense went through his head at that moment. I think if he actually said it to the public, I don't think they'd believe him. You've got people who are so blinded, and I mean, I can't believe how blinded they are, and it scares me. It scares me to live in this country. I used to adore being part of the UK when I was younger, and I'm quite a left person. Yes. I was really, I've devoted, and I made sure I worked in the NHS, and I would never work anywhere else. But if I'm honest with you, since Brexit, since this, I've questioned my whole being of even being a nurse. I thought...
Well, don't do that. We need you. We need you a hell of a lot more than we need special advisors driving to beauty spots to test their eyesight. I mean, your contribution during this crisis is...
But the problem with those advisors is they are people who have influence on my job and how my job is done.
That's true, yes.
So how can I work in a system that is just run... I mean, just very, very briefly off topic.
Go on.
You know, the reason we have a shortage of nurses is not about bursary. People love to talk about bursaries.
No,
it was actually because the university qualification was funded. They had X amount of spots, because they knew that there were a certain amount of nurses that were needed in this country. I changed my life. I went into nursing at 28. I don't know what on earth I did before that, but I focused myself and I changed my life around and I became a nurse. And without that opportunity, I would not have been able to do it. I certainly wouldn't get in the stupid amount of debt, regardless of if you're going to pay it off or not, in order to work as a nurse in this country anymore. If I wasn't for the fact that I was a single parent with my child here, I would leave this country. I am honestly that let down.
Well, there are people in you know, the British media who would tell you to, depending on your skin colour, if you don't like it here, why don't you go and live somewhere else? And they seem to be on the rise at the moment as well, don't they?
And that's all becoming socially acceptable. We've become this country where you're allowed to be racist and bigoted and offensive, and under the guise of free speech it's allowed. And because we've got a Prime Minister who's so rude and offensive in his whole nature that we've decided is funny, this is now accepted. I honestly, I'm at a crux in my life where.
Well, please don't, because
Yeah.
remember that line from Chernobyl that I read out a minute ago. I appreciate that a television drama about a nuclear cataclysm isn't necessarily the most obvious place to draw inspiration from, but it really works. You know, it really works. Every lie we tell incurs a debt to the truth. When the truth offends, we lie and lie until we can no longer remember that it's even there. But it is still there. Every lie we tell incurs a debt to the truth. Sooner or later, that debt is paid. So that's why you've got to hang in there.
I think the problem is, though, while we're waiting for that debt to be paid, we have children getting more and more in poverty. And I'm not even talking about going back to school or anything like that. I think actually, I'm talking about the children who've got nothing, who've been driven into nothing because their parents are on universal credit, because this is what this government has done. I feel so sad. So sad. And I just feel that all I see around me are those who support these awful people.
Yes.
And they are awful. They're not nice people. You know, they're not. Regardless of if they say the right things on occasion, all you have to do is look at their actions. Look at nurse shortages. Look at the poverty. Look at these poor children. It doesn't matter if they're from whatever background, whatever colour. They are either more mistreated because of a certain background, or they might have a slight leg up, but actually they're still treated like rubbish. It doesn't matter if you're, white or black. If you're in poverty, you're seen as nothing. And if Boris Johnson came out today and said sorry, I'd think he's doing that because he wants me to like him now. And that man will never get me to like him because I think he's the biggest imbecile, unpleasant person ever.
I mean, crikey, I know that you're speaking from the very, very bottom of your heart, and it's actually quite a profound moment to listen to you. But I still wonder whether if he did describe accurately and honestly the mistakes that were made in February, would you not have a slightly more increased faith in his, just in the one question of his ability to handle the next 12 weeks?
I think, for me, it would make me look at him as, oh, okay, maybe he is a human being. That's the most you're going to get from me with him.
Okay.
I would not have any.
No, fair enough. And I mean, and of course, anybody cross with you today, anybody listening to this having a problem with you, we need to ask them who the hell they thought they were clapping for on their front doorsteps every Thursday night for the last month, don't we? Because Sarah is a nurse, so you know, either you give her support, or you give her your ears, or you give her a largely meaningless gesture on your doorstep before returning to business as usual. And I say largely meaningless because it was for a while very special and very powerful, that moment, but not when it's followed up by a return to business as usual, union bashing, attacks on public sector workers, teachers in the front line most recently. It'll be nurses again soon, and then junior doctors. Mark my words.